Chapter 1 of History, the French Revolution. On the morning of 14 July 1789, the city of Paris was in a state of alarm. Some around 7,000 men and women gathered in front of the town hall and decided to form a pupils' militia. They broke into a number of government buildings in search of arms. A group of several hundred people marched towards the eastern part of the city and stormed the fortress prison, the Bastille, where they hoped to find hoarded ammunition. In the fight that followed, the commander of the Bastille was killed and the prisoner released. Yet the Bastille was hated by all because it stood for the despotic power of the king. The fortress was demolished and its stone fragments were sold in the markets to all those who wished to keep souvenir of its destruction. Now, the question is, how and why did this happen? For this, let's look several years ago. In 1774, Louis XVI of the Bourbon family became the King of France. He was 20 years old and married to Austrian Princess Marie. Upon his accession, the new king found an empty treasury. Long years of war had drained the financial resources of France. Added to this was the cost of maintaining the Palace of Versailles. Under Louis XVI, France helped the 13 American colonies to gain their independence from their enemy, Britain. To meet its regular expenses such as the cost of maintaining an army, the court, running government offices, the state was forced to increase taxes. French society in the 18th century was divided into 3 states and only members of the third estate paid taxes. The 3 estates were clergy, nobility, and common peoples. Clergy are the person invested with special functions in the church. Nobility are the peoples who work for king in the palace, such as ministers and commanders. About 90% of the population are peasants. However, only a small number of them owned the land they cultivated. About 60% of the land was owned by nobles, the church, and other richer members of the third estate. The member of the first 2 estates, that is, the clergy and the nobility, enjoyed certain privileges by birth. The most important of these was exemption from paying taxes to the state. The nobles further enjoyed feudal privileges. The church extracted its share of taxes called tithes from peasants, and finally, all members of the third had to pay taxes to the state. These include a direct tax called tally, a number of indirect taxes which were levied on articles of everyday consumption like salt or tobacco. The population of France rose from about 23 million in 1750 to 28 million in 1789. This led to rapid increase in the demand for food grains. Production of grains could not keep pace with the demand. So the price of the bread, which was the staple diet of the majority, rose rapidly. Things became worse whenever drought or hail reduced the harvest. This led to a subsistence crisis, something that occurred frequently in France during the Old Regime. The Old Regime refers to the society and institution of France before 1789. The 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups termed the middle class, who earned their wealth through an expanding overseas trade and from the manufacture of goods such as woolen and silk textile that were either exported or brought by the richer members of the society. All of these were educated and believed that no group in society should be privileged by birth. Rather, a person's social position must depend on their merit. These ideas, envisaging a society based on freedom and equal laws and opportunities for all, were put forward by philosophers such as John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In his two treaties of government, Locke sought to refute the doctrine of the divine and absolute right of the monarch. In spirit of law, Montesquieu proposed a division of super within the government between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The ideas of these philosophers were discussed intensively in saloons and coffee houses and spread among people through books and newspapers. Now, our next topic is France becomes a constitutional monarchy. The National Assembly completed the draft of the Constitution in 1791. The Constitution of 1791 vested the power to make the laws in the National Assembly, which was indirectly elected, that is, citizens voted for a group of electors who in turn choose the assembly. Not all citizens, however, had the right to vote. The Constitution began with a declaration of rights of men and citizens. Rights such as the right to life, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, equality before law were established as natural and inalienable rights. That is, they belong to each human being by birth and could not be taken away. It was the duty of the state to protect each citizen's natural rights. Now we will look at some political symbols. The first one is the broken chain. It refers to the act of becoming free. The second one is the bundle of rods or faces. It refers to the strength. It refers to strength lies in unity. The third is the eye within a triangle radiating light. It refers to knowledge, and the rays of the sun will drive away the clouds of ignorance. The fourth one is scepter. It refers to the symbol of royal power. And the fifth one is a snake biting its tail to form a ring. It refers to eternity. And there are few more symbols such as red Phrygian cap, blue, white, red.
These points are very useful. Try to learn in proper way. Okay.
A winged woman, and the law tablet. Now, let's go back to our chapter. The situation in France continued to be tense during the following years. Rulers of other neighboring countries too were worried by the developments in France and made plans to send troops to put down the events that had been taking place there since the summer of 1789. Now, the National Assembly voted in April 1792 to declare war against Prussia and Austria. Thousands of volunteers thronged from provinces to join the army. They saw this as a war of the people against kings all over the Europe. Among the patriotic songs they sang was the Marseillaise, written by Roger de Isle. The Marseillaise will become national anthem of France later. Political clubs became an important rallying point for people who wished to discuss government policies and plan their own forms of action. The most successful of these clubs was that of the Jacobins, which got its name from the former convent of Saint Jacob in Paris.
Here you are becoming somewhat slow, so try to make of the audio in two parts, as well as there should be that is certified. Your parents should certify that you have made this audio without seeing any notes or any books. Okay.
They included small shopkeepers, artisans such as shoemakers, pastry cookers, watchmakers, printers, as well as servants. Their leader was Maximilien Robespierre. In the summer of 1792, the Jacobins planned an insurrection of large numbers.
Whenever you are telling some name which are very difficult, at the same time you should tell the spelling of that particular name. Okay.
Of Parisians who were angered by the short supplies and high prices of food. On the morning of August 10, they stormed the palace of Tuileries, massacred the king's guard, and held the king himself as a hostage for several hours. Later, the assembly voted to imprison the royal family. Election was held. From now on, all men of 21 years and above, regardless of wealth, got the right to vote. The newly elected assembly was called the Convention. On 21 September 1792, it abolished the monarchy and declared France as republic. And now finally Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. On 21 January 1793, he was executed publicly at the Place de la Concorde. The Queen Marie met with the same fate shortly after. Now, our next topic is what is Reign of Terror? The period from 1793 to 1794 is referred to as the Reign of Terror. Robespierre followed a policy of severe control and punishment. The guillotine is a device consisting of two poles and a blade with which a person is beheaded. It was named after Dr. Guillotin, who invented it. Robespierre pursued his policies too relentlessly that even his supporters began to demand moderation. Finally, he was convicted by a court in July 1794, arrested, and the next day sent to guillotine. And now, our next topic is Rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. The directors often clashed with the legislative councils, who then sought to dismiss them. The political instability of Directory paved the way for the rise of a military dictator, Napoleon Bonaparte. Chapter 1 of History: The French Revolution. On the morning of 14 July 1789, the city of Paris.
Okay, this is over and you have presented in a better way. Okay, so all students who will be listening this audio are requested to send their opinion. If any mistake is there, you must make a written statement, okay, or message to my WhatsApp number jo 8630231637, okay. And at the same time you should send this, that is video also, okay, this audio also, okay. Along with this audio you should tell here is the mistake, okay. I have listened all the video, okay, all this audio, okay, and I think there is some little mistake, but if you are finding any mistake, and for others, to all students I am requesting that at the end you should send a message from your father parents that you have made this audio without seeing any notes or books, okay.